Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Tamara Laporte from Willowing Arts, and today I'm interrupting my Fill Your Journal series, of which I've only done 2 so far, for a episode or a session with you all that I hope will help ground people who are feeling fearful of the coronavirus. And or can help people just feel calmer and help process any fear or emotions that you're currently trying to deal with and work through. So we are currently in one of the weirdest times the world, I think, has seen, as in my lifetime. Obviously, there have been lots of weird times in the history of the world, but in my lifetime, coronavirus is everywhere and many people are on lockdown. Lots of fear going around in the world. And a lot of people on my Facebook feed expressing worries and anxiety and feeling vulnerable. And I thought, you know, what can I do to help? I'm experiencing similar feelings, by the way. And I thought, what can I do to help myself and help others sort of ground and feel calmer and try and deal with the situation as best we can? So here I am sharing with you what works for me. And then I wanted to create a piece of artwork today with you all that I want to do a portrait of a lion, because apparently the lion stands for protection and strength. And I think we can all do that, but also makes me feel, a lion's presence makes me feel quite like, wow, okay, you know, strong and centered and grounded. So I thought by meditating on a portrait of a lion, it may help us ground into the present moment, connect with our sort of protective energies and grounding energies. And simply by creating, no matter what you create, we tend to calm our busy, worrying mind down. Our cortisol levels and our stress levels will go down. And this is all helpful in response to any fears or anxiety we might be experiencing. So first of all, I myself and my family have been self-isolating for the last 2 weeks now, mostly because I fall into the high-risk category. I have an immune system that is suppressed. I take immune system suppressing medication, in fact, for my rheumatoid arthritis. So I'm in a high-risk group. So we had decided about 2 weeks ago to start self-isolating just to be extra cautious. And so I myself am experiencing anxiety and vulnerability, and I'm trying my hardest and bestest just to stay as calm and as grounded as I can. So by staying calm and grounded, I know that I'm supporting my immune system rather than agitating it or disabling it. So stress, if we are in stress, the immune system is less effective. So this is one of the big reasons I want to help you guys also to find methods and ways to really support yourself by staying as grounded and calm as you can be. So a couple of ways that I try to support my immune system and keep my stress levels as down as possible are by making sure I sleep enough and get a good quality sleep. So sleep apparently is massively important for cell regeneration, and generally it's just a super important thing to do. And I'm notorious for not sleeping enough, so I'm making an express effort and like a huge effort to make sure that I sleep enough and good quality as well. Another way is to eat well, eat a varied diet, including all your vegetables and fruits, so that you get all your minerals and vitamins to support your immune system. And of course, I'm following the advice to wash my hands regularly and clean my house as much as I can, or to wipe the surfaces so that I don't catch anything. And also, when I wash my hands, you know, I try to just do the singing song thing. And by the way, I shared this on Facebook, but I really quite like this as an idea. Someone said instead of singing the happy birthday song or Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, there is this fun song called Every Little Cell in My Body is Happy. And my children used to sing this at their school. And it goes like this. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. I'm so glad every little cell in my body is well. I'm so glad every little little cell in my body is well. And then you can repeat it. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body as well. I'm so glad, etc. So you can sing it as often as you like, and you do not even have to wash your hands to sing it, because it's just a fun, super fun, happy-making song. So I recommend singing that song no matter what you're doing. But that's a good way of, when you're washing your hands, singing that song, because you're throwing in some affirmations. Maybe your cells are listening and they're going, yes, we are happy, and they're just strong and healthy because of it. Or even if it doesn't work, this sort of stuff, affirmations or whatever, you've cheered yourself up by singing a super fun song. I really like this song. So I recommend that one. I hope to include a meditation. I'm going to link below. In the link below, I have a link to a free lesson that I gave out last time as well. It's to the, it's a free lesson called The Light of the Archangel, and you're welcome to join it. And in it, there is a meditation, that is a releasing fears meditation. It's usually releasing, it's a fear meditation around when you start a new project, but it can also be really applicable to what's going on in the world right now. So it's really about releasing fears. And then whatever you're doing in that meditation, you can apply, you can utilize some stuff that you're learning in that meditation in an artwork that you're creating afterwards. So I recommend creating art and doing guided meditations to stay grounded and connected to your body and yourself, and connected to the now, because really all there is the now. And what happens when a virus like this occurs in the world, and we're all very afraid, we stay up in our heads, we worry about the future a lot, we're very much projecting into the future, we're not connected to the now. Well, really that's all there is. And so when you're up in your head constantly thinking about the future, it's anxiety, it fuels your anxiety. So when you can redirect yourself to the present moment and connect it to your body, like really breathing. In the meditations I do, we do several breathing techniques, or even I'm doing it, I can feel it. It's such a relief. Just keep breathing and connecting to your body and in the now, which is where everything happens anyway. Your future doesn't exist yet. The past is gone. There's only this moment. Try to stay as grounded and connected to the now. And through meditations, and there are many, I also recommend things like, there's an app, there's a free app that has lots of meditations on there. So you can use those to just help you ground and let go of fears. There's lots of meditations out there that you can listen to help you really stay connected to yourself in the moment and grounded. So that's another thing I recommend you do. Plus, again, I have a free lesson that includes one of my meditations, like a 20-minute thing. So it might be quite powerful. Have a look in the description below for that link, and hope it's free to sign up. Now, another important thing for me when things like this happen and I feel really scared, or I'm really worried about whatever's going on in my life or in the world, is to not squash my feelings down and repress them and push them away. So I'm a big promoter and a big supporter of the idea that feelings need to be felt and acknowledged or validated. And you can do that in a variety of ways. So one of the ways to really feel your feelings or be in touch with them is by expressing them. And expressing them can be by talking to a friend and being very honest and open about how you're feeling, and having this friend validate or reflect back to you what they're hearing you say, which is sort of a form of empathy or validation. And then I also sometimes just recommend writing like poetry, or just doing a brain dump. So everything, all your anxiety, all your worries in your mind, just take a piece of paper, start writing. It doesn't have to be legible, or you type it up on the screen. Just let it all out. If you want to add some poetry to it and make it poetic, that in my case, I love doing that. That's my thing though. I love sort of trying to, if have a really difficult thing I'm dealing with, I try to sometimes just give it beautiful words, and I try to express it as poetically or as creatively as I can. And sometimes that really helps me just like get it out and express whatever I'm experiencing. And then of course another way is to create art. So I'm going to show you in this next part how I might deal with what I'm currently experiencing and how I'm processing it, and how I utilize art to stay grounded and help me process my feelings and call in maybe protective energies, or call in healing or transformative energies or something along those lines, whatever I'm looking for. Another thing that is key here is to try and give yourself as much empathy and compassion as you can muster. When you are experiencing all these negative feelings and fears, try to not have negative self-talk. Don't judge yourself for feeling afraid. Don't chastise yourself or just beat yourself up about these feelings and these thoughts. Instead, just talk to yourself as if you're talking to a 4-year-old child with the love and care that you might talk to a 4-year-old child and say, I understand that this is super scary for you and you must be worried about this. And just like reflect back any feelings and needs that you're hearing in yourself. First of all, naming the feelings, really naming them. I can feel in my body it's vibrating, or I can feel the blood rushing to my face, or any kind of description. So that if you're naming feelings, they often, the moment they feel hurt, they tend to move on and they can dissipate more easily than if you squash them away or push them away. And then to have a compassionate, understanding reaction to yourself can help with like really transforming or processing these emotions that you're experiencing. And then like in my case, I love to then put that into a painting as well, but that's a next step. So these are a couple of my thoughts and ideas as to how I deal with fear and anxiety. I hope this is helpful. And now what I'd like to do is create a piece of art that has a lion's portrait in it, a fierce sort of protective lion's portrait. And I'm going to be working with some watercolor paints and perhaps some inks. I will put in the description what I'm using or on the subtitles below. And I will keep talking to you all because I've been told that my voice can be quite calming. So I will, this will be somewhat of a time lapse, but I'll make it not as fast. And then I can do a voiceover and tell you what I'm doing and what I'm musing about and thinking about, and maybe lull you into a space of calm, because apparently some people have told me my voice is quite calming. So I'm happy to do that for you. And then again, like I said, if you want to do some more art and you just really want to like focus on art, there's a free lesson on my website. Check the link below. It's called The Light of the Art Angel, and it comes with a meditation as well. I may do an additional meditation if I have the time this weekend, but I've had lots of drama in this week, and that slowed me down work-wise, so I don't know if I have the time, but I really want to do one. If that doesn't happen, I may publish that like next week or something, just to be helpful. I hope that this sort of stuff helps everyone to, find some grounding in this tumultuous, weird, strange time. And I love you all. I want to send you protective bubbles of safety and health. You're not alone. We're all out here worried about the same thing, feeling anxious. And let's try and connect. What we can actually obviously do at the moment is connect online. So if you have friends online or family and you can Zoom them or Skype them, like do face calls, hang out in Facebook groups, find your connection in your community, share with each other, be loving and supportive. Don't judge each other. Just be there with compassion. And you're all loved. You're all loved. I care about you all so much, and send you lots and lots of care and, protective bubbles of light. Let's do some art. Hey everyone. So we're coming to the art part, and as I was musing on what to do with my lion portrait, I totally changed my mind. So I changed my mind. I thought I want to do a different design today, and I thought, you know what? Basically, I've been looking for like images that include protection symbols or calming, grounding type imagery or symbolism. And as I went through my own artwork on my folder, my trusty folder, I bumped into this particular image. That's actually on the front of my book. I've got it on a postcard as well. And this image is actually a painting I made for my book Ever After, and it's of the story I worked with here, Sleeping Beauty. And for this particular chapter, and you don't have to go and get my book. Oh, sorry about the noise. You don't have to go and get my book. But just to tell you what I have been doing for this particular lesson, it's one of the interesting things that I like, or maybe I didn't do it in this section. One of the things that I like doing is making up my own symbolism for words or characteristics or things in life that I want to symbolize. So me making up my own symbols was born out of not being able to find symbols that represented, let's say, protection. Because when you read the story of Sleeping Beauty, in my book and on the course Ever After, I go deeply into the original fairy tale stories. By the way, Ever After no longer runs live, but it is still available if you're interested in this. Anyway, I'm just kind of letting you know what I want to do today and explaining where it's come from. So I like to go deep into the original stories, and the older versions of the fairy tale stories are actually quite brutal and quite dark often. And so Sleeping Beauty also had a real darkness to it. And what I did with my book and lessons for Ever After as well is I wanted to bring in what I felt I needed in the story, what I wanted the characters to have. So I felt like Sleeping Beauty, the character in Sleeping Beauty was really mistreated in the original story. And so I wanted her to have, to feel protected and be kind of surrounded by protection spells or something. So that's how I designed this idea, this concept of this painting. So this here is my symbol for protection, and I'll talk about that in a second. And the roses are with thorns protecting her as well. And she's asleep, obviously, in this case, because she's Sleeping Beauty. But I thought today we could do a similar type portrait with the lady's eyes open, because we're not doing Sleeping Beauty, we're doing awake people who feel perhaps a little bit unsettled and nervous in the world, but I want so I want to have her eyes open and still put some protection, healing and light symbols in the imagery, as well as the roses. I like it. It's very gentle, beautiful imagery, and we can work in a similar color scheme as well. So it's mostly pinks and purples in this, and whites, or I might add some orange in as well, perhaps. I don't know yet. I quite like this color scheme. So yeah, so I thought I'd do that today, and then I'll talk to you about the symbolism, which I don't know if that's where I've done that in this book. So what I do, and this is something you might like doing as well, is if you want to bring in a symbol of some sorts. Where do I talk about this? Okay. Sorry. I don't mention it here. Here, yeah. Okay, here we go. So I found it. So personal symbology, I call it, and there's a method to how I do them. So if you have a particular word or quality of experience that you want to symbolize and you can't find any, let's say, more common or traditional symbols for it, a really great way of finding your own symbol and repeatedly using it in that same way is by taking a piece of paper and closing your eyes. So let's say you want to. So here I've used the words that I wanted to symbolize are surrender to flow, ground and center would be a good one actually. Step back, slow down, strength, power, protection, acceptance, growth, expansion, vitality, life force, compassion, and empathy. So the way I came to these symbols is by doing the following. So let's say we take another word that isn't on here yet. So let's say I want to use love. Okay, love is too obvious. It's going to be a heart. Let's do another one that isn't so obvious. Could be connection. Let's do connection, because I didn't do connection yet. Okay, so if I want to symbolize connection, and I don't have any symbol for connection yet, what I do is I hold my pencil in my non-dominant hand, which is in my case my left hand, and then I close my eyes and I take a couple of deep breaths and I try to quiet my mind a little bit, and then I think about the word connection. So what I do is I take a couple of deep breaths, really calm myself down, hold my pen or pencil in my non-dominant hand, and then I concentrate on the word that I want a symbol for. And I put my pencil on the page and I might not even look, and I just think of right now I'm thinking of the word connection. And I just sort of, if I see an image in my mind or if my hand just wants to move in reaction to the word connection, I just start to scribble. Right, so here we go. Here's my little thingy that came out for the word connection. And then what I do is so sometimes they're like really quite blip, 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 and then, a little bit more messy. Sorry, I should have. This one is quite pretty. And I will tidy it up, and I might adjust it. So at that point I might go, okay, cool, I like this. So I really kind of ended up going, What do I do? Down, down, oh, down, down, down. Okay, right, okay, I got it. So where did I start? No, I didn't start that way. Where did I start? I started this way, okay. Da-da-dum. 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 And if I want, let's say, maybe I want to do it like that. You know, maybe so I might flowery it up. So this, and then I could put a circle around it, or a triangle, or a square, or something like that. So I've got it, and then I practice it a couple of times, and I add it to my library of symbols. So what did I do? I started off with... Okay, I'm going to practice a couple of times more. Oh, it's pretty. Or it could just be like this, or like this. Or I might start to add like that and like that and like that, and then a triangle around it. Now I've got my symbol for connection. You see, something like that. So you start off with you're going to try and use your non-dominant hand, close your eyes, have something coming out, whatever it is that comes into your mind, or sort of like you're trying to be as less interfering with your sort of thinking mind as you can. An image will come, then you firm it up, and then that is your personal symbolism. And I really enjoy doing that, so and now I'm going to use that one for connection. Actually, I really like that one. So I'm going to use that one for connection, but today I want to create this portrait that I just showed you and bring in symbolism that I want to use right now. This is my symbol for protection as it is anyway, so that was relevant to this story as well. And I may bring in a symbol for light and healing and safety, perhaps. And I might do that in the background or in the body or wherever I want to do that. And I do love this image a lot, so the roses and the way it's sort of designed. So I'm going to try and do something very similar to what I've done in this image previously. Okay, so I will time-lapse this part, but I will do a voiceover, as I said, and I'll put some subtitles in when it comes to what I'm using and that sort of thing. So I hope you enjoy it, and if you do create anything in reaction to this, I do run a Facebook group called Willowing and Friends. If you're not part of it yet, please join us there. It's a free group, and I love seeing what you make in reaction to any of my videos. Now, stay safe and calm. Remember that staying calm is more supportive for our immune system. And if you are panicking and upset and anxious, that's also okay. And just try to really express yourself and validate your feelings and give yourself as much compassion for your feelings as you can. Okay, let's get started on some art. So here is my voice. Hello. I will try and speak as low and soothing as possible to help soothe your anxieties and help keep you grounded and calm. Perhaps with a little giggle or a song interspersed as well, because I can't help myself sometimes. So do forgive me if that is interrupting the flow of the soothing. Okay, so for this art piece here that you can see me draw is I first design the front-facing portrait. And I do it in a sort of typical Tam style. It's not super realistic. I've not based it on very realistic proportions because I like to draw stylized and whimsical type portraits. And I have a specific way that I design my portraits. I use a couple of lines for guidance and build up my face that way. By the way, what you see me use a little soft sock over there to wipe away the eraser marks, little leftover bits. I do that because if I do it with my hand, I tend to smudge the graphite, and I don't like doing that. Okay, so here I'm now drawing my the hair on the girl, and I'm basically using my own piece of art as a reference point. So I'm doing a very similar design as I showed you earlier. And you can find this design online. Even if you just look at the book or the front of the book, you can probably find this image somewhere online if you wanted to use it as a reference as well, or you can follow what I'm doing here. So once I'd done my sort of first sketch, I then tidied it up off camera with my eraser and like firmed up some lines, etc. And this is the time now that I'm ready to start painting. And I use a mix of art supplies. So I use a variety of watercolor or water-based paints like watercolor, also water-soluble inks. I like to use acrylics as well, and crayons. So sort of a couple of my sort of very go-to supplies. And right now I'm adding a salmon color skin tone as a first base layer to this girl. And I'm actually using a crayon, a pastel, neo art pastel that is no longer sadly being produced. Sorry for the bing bong there. So that's how I like to start my portraits, with just a first base layer of some kind of color like salmon or an ochre if I do a darker skin tone. And then I tend to build up the shadows slowly but surely. As you can see here, that I'm already adding in some more shadows. And I do that again with a mix of types of paint. So at this point it's still the same crayon, but in a moment I use some acrylics paint. And I start adding shadows where I expect the shadows to be in this type of portrait. So I have a sort of a template, if you will, in my head where I place my shadows for a front-facing portrait with a particular type of lighting. And if I don't want my layers to interact with each other, I make sure to dry my layers with a heat gun or a hairdryer like you see me do here. And here you see me use an acrylics paint by Ceramcoat. And I use that sometimes to sort of firm up a layer, or if I feel like my watercolor base is a little bit splotchy, which is a technical term, look it up. I use the acrylics sometimes to sort of smooth out any splotchiness that I don't enjoy. So that's what you see me do here. In the meantime, while you're painting and drawing, keep kind of concentrating on, the brush strokes, the line work, in that sort of meditative, calming way. I love that art has this ability to calm us down as we create. So I now pulled out my Schminke set. Schminke is a watercolor brand, or I don't know if they do other types of supplies as well. They might do. But anyway, I got their watercolor set, and I'm kind of a little bit obsessed with them lately. No affiliation. But anyway, I'm using some of their colors to add some first basic washes to the eyes and the mouth. And I'm using the same color that I use for the eyes as some shading. So using purples and blues and grays for shading can really work. You can also use the salmon tone and make that darker for your shading, but all kinds of colors can work for shading, particularly when you're working in non-realistic portraits. You have so much creative freedom, as opposed to if you were to work more realistically, although you have creative freedom there as well, right? For me, creating art is not about following very strict rules. I like exploring and trying things out and experimenting, and even if it ends up not working out, that's a really great learning experience, isn't it? So here I'm working with a Dermont pencil, and this is a water-soluble one actually. So I work with a mix of color pencils and water-soluble color pencils, and some are you can activate with water and some you can't. This one you can. The only thing you need to do is pay attention to what you're using in case you didn't want it to react to water, and you're using a water-soluble one. That can be a problem. Just be aware which ones you're working with. I also grabbed a Posca pen here, which is an acrylic paint marker. And I'm starting to add some dark pupils to her eyes and some line work around the area, around the eye area and the eyebrows and the nostrils there. These are sort of these are lines that I'm placing early on, but they tend to mute back a bit later as I add more paint to the face. Oh, I got a bit of sunshine reflected onto the page. That's nice. I'm only noticing that now. And that makes me think I'd like to sing You Are My Sunshine, My Only Sunshine. You make me happy when skies are grey. Such a lovely, happy song. You just don't know, dear, how much I love you. Too low. Please don't take my sunshine away. Alright. So I'm building up shading and shadows and taking back some, adding back some, taking away some. What happens for me sometimes is I start off with my dark Posca pen too early in the game. Personally, that's the thing I struggle with. And then there's lots of black outlines. And though I don't mind it so much today, I do sometimes find it frustrating when the lines are too strong, and so I then tend to, as I paint, mute them back. You'll see me do that a bit later, so some of these lines that are now so starkly standing out will be muted back a bit later. Here I grabbed another pencil, and this is actually a non-water-soluble color pencil in the Faber-Castell. I think it's a polychroma pencil. I like using a variety of color pencil brands. Some of them are so Faber-Castell Polychromas. I like Prismacolor. I like Caran d'Ache, Luminance, and I've also recently been using Artesa's color pencils, which are also quite cool. So I'm starting to add some shading with pencil. It's nice to use pencil because you can really add kind of detail and different kinds of textures. I enjoy combining different kinds of textures when I do portraits like this. I'm also adding some detail there to the mouth, kind of make it more rounded. And so slowly but surely building up the shading in this portrait. Here we come back in with the Posca pen again. You make me happy when skies are grey. I was contemplating the expression of this person's face, because what I wanted to do was to kind of bring in someone who might be somewhat anxious, and I think I captured that quite well on her face. But I also wanted to bring in a little bit of fierceness or some kind of strength. I do think she kind of has that as well. So someone who's anxious but has a strength about her. And later on, I think I intensify some of the shading around the eyes in such a way that her face becomes slightly fiercer. So here I'm adding white highlights with a white acrylics Posca pen. And it's mixing in with some of the pencils. That's why it's now grey. So because those pencils some of them are water soluble, the moment I add that white paint to it, it becomes grey. So what you can't see me do is I actually took some white acrylic inks here that I didn't show you, but basically, and I thought, let me use that instead of the pen at the moment. So I wanted to get some really white highlights there. So I'm using white acrylics inks there instead of the pen. Oh, and that was a little Posca, no, not a Posca pen, that was a crayon that I added to the eye there. And here you have a bit of a close-up where you can see the type of highlights that I'm doing. And I'm playful about highlights, so I'm not, again, super realistic. I tend to put them in places where you are expecting them, and I might make them into sort of sparkly, glittery types of highlights. For me, I make a lot of what I call quote-unquote magical artwork. And I think that's come from me wanting to escape into beautiful, magical worlds. So that's just how that evolved for me over the span of my career, really. It's the type of artwork I'm most attracted to. I suppose it's most comforting to me to make that type of art where the characters are whimsical and magical in nature, and it gives me a feeling of comfort and reassurance, really. So some people, of course, in life make art that is, let's say, super expressive of maybe anger or darker emotions. And while it might seem that I don't have those emotions or that I'm not addressing them in art like this, they are actually very much addressed, because I often create art in reaction to my distressed emotions. But for me, the way I like dealing with or processing it is by creating safe little worlds where my emotions are welcome and someone is holding them almost, and reassuringly and lovingly is there for me. So that's often how my characters appear and occur. That's the type of work that for some reason is most comforting and soothing to me. But at the same time, I might be in turmoil and dealing with that turmoil by creating a character who can symbolically listen to that turmoil, if you see what I mean. Anyway, so here a bit more, understanding of the depth and the psychology of me and what goes on in me. But if you've been on my courses, you've heard me talk about this before. I'm quite clear on how why my characters exist in the way that they do, and tend to share it with people as well. So here I'm trying to add a bit of rosy cheeks to her face. And so, of course, you saw me, I started on the hair. I added first the washes to the roses and the hair. And I did that in a kind of pink color. I'm using both Jane Davenport and Schminke here. So Jane Davenport has beautiful pinks in her Brights set. And again, Schminke also have very beautiful colors that I love. So I'm using a mix here of both. And I'm starting, so with the hair, I'm using a lot of hair. This time you can see basically the entire page is sort of covered with hair, or a lot of it. And so I'm bringing shading to the hair by adding the darker part with a sort of light medium purple at first. And later on I'm bringing in dark, I'm doing that now. I was ahead of, just really well timed. These are the darker purples in the Jane Davenport set, and the lighter purples came from the Schminke, I think. So as you can see here, I'm just sort of building up shading and dark and leaving some things light, and kind of alternating. And same, I'm taking that same purple into the roses there, into the flowers, to bring some variation, light and darks to the flowers and the roses too. So I'm kind of working between the hair and the flowers simultaneously. And my roses are very impressionistic, so they're again also not super realistic, but with just a couple of sort of shapes you can create quite some cool kind of flowery or rose-like looking flowers. Yeah, I enjoy doing those. Oh, I'm doing eyelashes here, so in my more recent years I've started adding eyelashes to my characters. Before I didn't do that because they, for me in my head, belonged to older women or young women, but not children, and my characters were often younger characters. And then I evolved away from that. Now I really enjoy eyelashes, and in fact find it frustrating when they're not there. They're really missing if they're not there. It's funny how things change like that. So here I'm just using a Posca pen to add a lot of line work. Add more line work to all the shapes that I've created. And I like to use a loose line, a loose scribbly sketchy line, rather than very precise, and that adds a sort of a level of playfulness to the page. And yeah, I just enjoy that type of drawing, or line work, line quality I should say, the line quality. Okay, and I'm also adding these lines to the crease of the hair, again to deepen the shadows where I feel they need them. And again, I do a lot of work, or in my paintings, the black Posca pen, or some kind of version of that, it does often play a big role in my work as to how it will shape out. So it would be very hard for me not to use any black pen in paintings of mine. And if I don't use black pen, I might end up with, let's say, a Stabilo old pencil. But I have to somehow have a dark line option. Okay, so here I'm adding some color to her top or her clothing. And again, I've based the clothing on the other painting I've done before. And I just have to comment on how beautiful this pinky magenta color is. It is truly one of my favorite colors out there. And luckily, many of the watercolor sets I use have a version of it. I think right now I'm using Jane's. I'm not sure. It could be that I'm going into the Schminke one. They're very similar, actually, they're similar colors. But I find that Jane's watercolors are a bit more opaque, a bit more, almost a little bit leaning towards gouache compared to other watercolors. So here I'm adding more purple in to deepen the shading in the hair. And yeah, that purple definitely comes from Jane's watercolor set, the Brights. And again, no affiliation, just sharing with you guys which art supplies I use and love. Okay, again, deepening the shading there. And note how, that I go over some of these layers several times to deepen shading. And that's the case often with watercolor, that as you apply your watercolor to the page, the paper really absorbs it and then the color fades a bit. And so you might need several layers, 3 or 4, if you wanted intenser color. So you might need sort of 3 or 4 colors to kind of get that more intensity of color, should you want it. Here I'm bringing some more detail to the roses with darker parts in certain areas of the petals. And I will also in a moment be adding the highlights. Oh, there we are. Here I go. So I grab some white acrylics inks and just add some highlights in. And as you can see, I did this super loosely. I'm not using a reference photo. You can, of course. I'm just loosely applying some highlights. And I love how roses like this look. They're very playful and very expressive. And here I'm decorating her top a bit, that I also did on my original painting with swirly, whirly, curly shapes and doodles. Yay! Okay, some highlights in the hair. So here, I'm dipping my brush into a little pot of white acrylics ink by, I think it's Winsor Newton or Daler-Rowney. Maybe Daler-Rowney, I don't know. Alright, I'm doing the same here with the roses again. I'm adding darks first, and then soon I'll start adding lights. And I'll be doing the same to all of the roses here, I think, apart from... Yes, no, I am, yeah. So when you're creating art that has similar shapes and a lot of repetition, it's a really great way of getting into that meditative headspace and just focus on relaxing your body, relaxing your mind, and staying as calm as you can. And that's the beauty about repetition, I find. Similar with when you're doing Zentangles or doodling, can be really, really meditative and relaxing to repeat the same kind of brush strokes, repeat the same kind of colors, repeat the same kind of shading. So just notice that as you work, that these are moments where you can really become even more sort of focused on being here now. Some parts, when you create art, might require your thinky part of the brain be quite active, I don't know, you might be thinking, how do I do this eye? Or very technical, some bits are more technical focused and other bits are more easy to do. They're easier to do and they're perhaps sort of... there's a lot of repetition in there, and that can be a really great time for meditative headspace and grounding. So here I've started to add some color to the background. I'm using the beautiful magenta color again that I love so much, and of course it's in line with the color scheme. But I will be adding some white to the background later as well to bring in some contrast. And also, we're going to do some white splatter. Splattering is one of my favorite things to do. Oh, here we go. Here's the whites come in. So I'm just adding a bit of white to the background above her head, just to add with a bit of contrast, or help with the contrast. And I'm using acrylic inks again. But you can also use heavy-bodied acrylics ink here in acrylic paints. It doesn't have to be the inks per se. I just like the ease and versatility of the inks. Okay, I think we are coming to the point now where it is doodle time. Doodle time is a great time in my life. Doodle time, and I'm starting off with my symbol for protection and strength that I showed you that I'd done in the book earlier. So it's a symbol I have created already in the past before, and I'm adding that to the forehead of my portrait of my girl. This is the third eye placement. I find it a powerful positioning, so it's a powerful symbol and it's a powerful positioning. Me trying to say we are protected, or it could be that this is the person who is protecting all of us. I am not sure, but I'm imbuing the painting and my own energy with a sense of protection and strength, and sending that out to all of you as I'm creating it. I'm at the same time as I create a painting like this, I'm meditating on the safety and protection of all beings in the world, which is always really nice as well. When you do an intentional painting like this, you can very deliberately send good prayers or good thoughts or good energy into the world as you create your painting, and your good thoughts and prayers are being affirmed and kind of emphasized by the creative process as you are creating. It's quite a special, magical kind of experience for me personally, I have to say. I can only talk for myself, of course. Okay, and so here I'm starting to doodle, and doodles in Tam's world are often things like butterfly wings, whimsical, weird, quirky flowers, little houses that you'll see me do in a second. Sometimes I have some botanical type swirly, twiggy like shapes that I'll do today as well. And then my favorite symbols tend to be stars and hearts, and so you'll find them all over my artwork most of the time. So here I'm adding some little houses. Houses remind me of community, so that's my symbol for community. I always want to invoke a community, have more community, see more community in the world. So by adding little houses together, I'm kind of calling upon the energy of community to come in, or to become active in the world in a positive way, perhaps. Much like I just heard that in Italy during the coronavirus, they're all on lockdown, but they've started singing to each other, which brought me to tears. So that's a sense of community that I would love to see more of in the world. Yeah. So doodling, again, is that repetitive, meditative, grounding, playful way of creating. It doesn't require a lot of technical thinking. And particularly in my case, I'm just doodling in sort of really childlike shapes. Oh yes, and at this point, I am putting some affirmations into the hair. I'm writing, some of you can read it, but it doesn't have to be legible. So I'm writing things like, we are all safe, all is well, the light, what did I say, is healing us, we are loved, we are safe, we are protected, healing light is surrounding us. So if you're having any affirmations you'd like to incorporate into your painting, you can make up your own, or you can use mine. We are healing, we are safe, we are protected. These are all really great affirmations. When you do affirmations, please write them in the positive present tense. Don't write negative. So don't write, I am not going to be affected by the coronavirus, because the subconscious can't apparently pick up on the past tense. It only hears present tense. So when you ever use affirmations, write them in the present tense, in the positive perspective, as if they are already true, even though it might feel a bit weird. So even if you think, ooh, I don't know if I am healthy or not, the point is that if you are saying, I am healthy, the universe, this is a theory, obviously this might not be true, I don't know, but this is a theory. that the universe eventually have to conform to your statement. So that's sort of the concept behind affirmations, and also your body and your mind will have to affirm, almost be affirming your actual thoughts. So that's how I utilize affirmations. All right, and here I'm continuing on with my little doodles. I'm bringing in a tiny bit of shading here. So at this point, when I do my doodle time, I often also... Oh, hang on. Let me tell you first about this. So here, I wanted to bring in 2 more symbols, one for healing and one for safety. So I'm doing that thing that I described to you earlier. I sit still and I concentrate on the energy of the word, and I draw with my non-dominant hand what comes up, and then I tidy the actual symbol up and create it into something that feels right to me. So there you are. So I created 2 symbols, one for safety and one for healing. I'm now going to put them into the painting as well. I'm putting the safety one on her throat area, her throat chakra, and I'm going to put the healing one above her in her crown chakra. I'm noticing that I'm placing them in all the places of chakras, which was unintentional actually, but may have been subconsciously relevant. Okay, so I was talking about, what was I talking about? Doodling? I can't remember. Okay, so now it's time for splattering, and this is one of the funnest parts of the painting. I love this so much. It adds that magical sparkle to a painting. So I'm using white acrylics inks here, and I'm loading my brush up with quite a bit of water and the inks, and just start to gently tap the brush with another tool. I really love the addition of white splatters. Always brings a real sort of magic to a painting. And it's easy to do. It usually is the final step, although sometimes you can do it as a midway step. I understand, obviously, your layering will, remove quite a bit of your previous splatters, so I tend to do this as a final step. And in addition to it just being super fun, it's also so beautiful, and it really adds something to a painting. So we're nearly there now. It's nearly the end of this session. And I've really enjoyed creating this painting today. If you enjoyed my session today as well, do consider subscribing to the channel and or join some of my classes. Remember the free class that I'm giving away today. Check out the description below for details on the free class. And yeah, I also like hanging out on Instagram and on Facebook in my Facebook group. So I hope to see you there as well. So I love how she came out. She's got a slightly kind of ambivalent yet fierce or strong look on her face. I hope creating your own protection warrior lady was a calming, grounding experience, and that creating in and of itself was meditative and interesting and calming for you. Do share your artwork in my Facebook group if you're interested, and I hope to see you around. Stay well, stay calm, look after yourself, and you are loved. So very much loved. Thank you for being here today with me. Much love. Bye-bye.